OK, well now we turn to some science news. There is no such thing as a Fianna Fail gene or a Fine Gael gene, but some innovative research by experts at Trinity College and at Dublin City University has shed new light on the historical DNA of both parties and produced some surprising results. Our man with the microscope, Micheál Lehane, reports.
Two different parties, but why? Was it the treaty and the Civil War? Or could something else be at the root of it? Now, a genetics researcher and a political scientist have joined forces to see if there is something else that sets Fianna Fail and Fine Gael apart.
People always talk in Irish politics about how tribal our politics is, but people don't really get very particular about what they mean by that or what type of tribes we're talking about. So we were curious to look at this question somewhat scientifically and see if we could cast some light on whether there is an actual tribal nature to our politics. What we did to look at that was using distribution of surnames in political parties. So Irish surnames are some of the oldest in the world, and they've been given from about 1,000 years ago on. And also there's a huge amount of genealogical information in Ireland.
That provided the key to unravelling the history of the people who went on to win Dáil elections for these parties.
It's always been very difficult to find differences in terms of policy between Fianna Fail and Fine Gael, and one of the areas where there have been differences, and one of the things that sparked our interest, was the two types of nationalism historically. So there had been a sort of violent cultural nationalism and a constitutional nationalism, and we wondered whether this could have been linked to the party system that emerged in 1922.
We decided we'd look at the two big groups of Gaelic surnames and Old and New English surnames and look at the two big parties in Ireland, the big division in Irish politics between Fianna Fail and Fine Gael, which on the surface it's hard to kind of make sense of why it would have persisted so long. You've got two parties with quite similar political programmes, but yet have been quite separated and quite divided for the history of the state and remain so despite the fact the Civil War is long over. And so when we looked at these two parties and looked at the distributions of the surnames in them, we found quite significant differences where basically, although in both parties over half of the TDs of surnames of Gaelic origin, in Fine Gael it's only 51% of their TDs have had names of Gaelic origin, where in Fianna Fail it's 64%. And similarly for Old and New English surnames, Fine Gael have a higher level of 22%, where Fianna Fail have a much lower level of 12%.
But what do these new statistics tell us about Fianna Fail and Fine Gael?
It is significant in that we can now see what historians had tended to tell us was that the foundations of the party system in Ireland more or less went just to the treaty, and they didn't go any further back than that, maybe to 1916. But this allows us to go back much, much further and link the two parties to two nationalist traditions.
So it's not to say so much that if you have the surname of a TD, you can't predict which party he's going to be aligned to, but there is a bias for TDs with Gaelic names to be members of Fianna Fail and for TDs with older New English surnames to be members of Fine Gael.
Well, we can see that it was much stronger in the 1920s than it is today. The differences are still there. But probably since the late 1970s, there's been a significant weakening in the relationship between this. And this, I suppose, is something you'd expect as there's more intermarriage and so the surname is a less reliable marker of your sort of heritage.
Times may be changing, but these revealing new facts perhaps provide an insight into why these two parties that sound and often look so similar have never coalesced in government.